Hi, this is Jamie Shanks at Sales for Life, and welcome to Social Selling Adoption. I'm going to give you the state of social selling in 2017, not by myself, but by a customer. You're going to hear exactly what they did over the last 18 months or 2 years to become social sellers. And I want to introduce you to somebody who has changed the organization at Juniper Networks. Stan here is the Global Director of Commercial Sales and Inside Sales. Stan, why don't you say hi to the audience for us?
Hello, and good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everybody in the world. It's pretty cool to see all the names coming up.
Fantastic. And Stan, perhaps you could give a sense to the audience of exactly what your role is in the organization so they can get a sense of what type of social selling transformation happened at Juniper.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jamie. So my name is Stan Deboise. I'm leading Juniper Commercial Sales and Inside Sales. So it's basically all of the non-major accounts in Juniper, so all of the non-large enterprise. We've been using social selling. We started using social selling roughly a year and a half ago through simple usage of tools. And we started to train ourselves and become professional in using social selling with inside sales about a year ago. And we started to also use it for our field sellers that we trained them just a few months ago.
Fantastic. So everyone, I'm going to ask Stan 7 very direct questions. And for any of you who lead a sales enablement team or a commercial sales leader like Stan, take notes because you're now talking to somebody who's done this in the Americas, in EMEA, in APEC, has a full global program that understands what works, what doesn't work, what's good, bad, and ugly. So I'm going to dive right into the very first question. And one of the first data points that we've looked at globally is what are the objectives for why teams decide to become social sellers? What is the trigger? What is the impetus? And the data is showing that there is no question that it has to do with converting contacts and leads into customers. So whether they have internal, inbound MQLs, or they have an account-based centric mindset, they're attacking certain customer lists, they really need to increase prospecting efforts that yield results. And so now I'm going to ask Stan a very pointed question. Stan, for your team, what was the trigger? What was the impetus for you to go through this social selling journey? What was the need?
So the biggest challenge we had is like every inside sales organization, because it all started with inside sales. All our inside sales organization was having more and more difficulties to get hold of people, decision makers, through phone, through email, and we realized that the buying journey started way before we contacted them. So we're really looking forward to be earlier in the sales cycle and earlier in the conversation, not trying to sell, but try to really be as an advisor in the decision process. We find out that they spend a lot of time through social networks of any shape, and we used we tried to use different ways of reaching them out, initially in a bit of amateurish way, and that didn't pay any return, any dividends. And then we trained them with a proper methodology, and now we're seeing a huge difference. But now one thing was be early in the sales cycle and engaging meaningful conversations.
Now, Stan, was your sales team finding that the IT buyer, there's a lot of data, a lot of stories coming out that the IT buyer is changing. They're not the central decision maker for IT budgets. And in fact, it's moving towards a line of business. The commercial leaders of whether it could be finance or human resources or sales are also getting in part of IT purchases. How did that affect your approach as you were having a conversation with the team? Where would the team have to shift in their ability to speak to the customer?
So I mean, talking to the right person is always a challenge, regardless of the mean, whether it's on social, on the phone, on email, any kind of conversations. What's true in every side of organization, there's not only one decision maker. You have quite a few of them, and you have to influence them through different trigger points. So for us, reaching out the right people has and will always be a challenge. Now, what is true is with social, you can really surround your customers through different ways. You can do your own studies about it. You can search for the organization. Much more information is widely available through internet. So for sure, when you want to go and engage with a customer, we have to figure out the different entry points, and one contact per customer is not the answer for us. So social has been definitely useful for us to surround a customer and finding out who are the other persons who are in the decision process. So we can engage with them, and again, through different means of communication.
Fantastic. So second data point that I want to review for everybody, social selling program integration. Only 6.1% of social selling users have a program that's been fully integrated into their sales process. Most companies, you see the data right here, 40.5% of companies are self-taught. 37% of companies and I've walked the halls of now 300 companies globally. Most of them, the idea of social or using social, they're just not using it. So now the question for Stan. Most companies are trying to do this on their own. They haven't centralized the process. Why did you decide to centralize this? Why was it important that the inside sales reps for you globally all knew how to do this?
So yeah, that's a very that took us time to understand. So social is not new, and all the people on the call here know social networks. You're all active on your networks and so on. So we build our own program with social experts in-house. We build our own program, and we made it available to the inside sellers. And as I mentioned earlier, we had really limited results. We made a program available. We gave them access to LinkedIn Sales Navigator that we paid for starting, I think, it was a year and a half or 2 years ago. And our results were very poor. But we knew our customer was still on these networks. So the big change for us was it's not an option. It's truly part of the toolkit that every seller need to have. Back maybe when our parents were in sales, they were selling letters, and one day they said telex, and then they said fax. It was fully integrated, and the guy who didn't have it was having a competitive disadvantage. For us, social selling for inside sales, for sure, has been part of a job completely integrated in the sales process because we saw the need, we saw the results. Now, I'm sure we'll talk about adoption in the next few slides, and we have our own challenges for sure. But that's the step one. We realized that making it optional, making something available on demand was not working, but really having it part of the day in the life, in their daily activities made a huge difference.
Fantastic. So now part three, the barriers to social selling. This is data based on users. So imagine going into a company and polling those that have become social against those that have not become social. And there's two major data points that you're going to find in every company. And it starts with Stan. It starts with leadership. So it's going to start at the cultural shift, but specifically the cultural shift at the frontline sales managers and then the leaders of leaders, the tier 1 and the tier 2 leaders. So the question here for Stan, what was the most difficult part about the cultural shift of your inside sales department, and then also you having to lead the cultural shift and the management buy-in of those frontline inside sales leaders?
Yeah, so if I look backwards on what was the challenge, still is the challenge, and I could classify them in twofold. One is on management, and one is on the users. So if you look first on the management, social is something that everybody knows, everybody has heard about, but it's difficult to, when you start, there's a pretty heavy investment, and it's not only about dollars as an investment to pay a company like Sales for Life or LinkedIn Sales Navigator. It's a whole new investment of, we have today roughly 100 inside sales globally in Juniper, is all the time, all the enablement. That's a pretty big shift that needs to happen, and it's not easy to explain that today we can start engaging in conversation on social that will not pay off the same day. Social is a journey, is where you build up relationship over a long time. You become a really trusted advisor. You don't try to sell. So trying to explain this overall vision to leadership was taking time. Then we had to ask for money, ask for budget. And again, when you try to deploy a global program like this, not every organization has a global program or global budget. So the first time we had to find local budget in every 3 theater, explain and convince the 3 theater about the value of this program. Eventually, I think at the scale of Juniper in our business, that was something, it was not that difficult to find money, but the convincing of the value for it was hard, knowing that not many organizations had it as a proven in a material return. That was the first challenge for us. The first barrier was trying to really convince people that was something we had to do, and convince 100 people to spend minutes and hours per day doing social. The second element of change was, or barrier to adoption, was truly around the users. And again, that's still a challenge for us, of course. So you have the, call it, born on social people, and the other millennials who today have been using social all their life, who only know how to communicate through Messenger, Snapchat, WhatsApp, and so on. So for them to say, hey, we want to use, these kind of modern platforms to communicate with customers and engage new conversation, they had a leap of faith and say that's what we do every day. So I think adoptions with younger generation has been easier. They saw the value very quickly. They knew how to engage with a very open, and I will not say familiar, but less formal relationship. And that's because social has to be a bit less formal. For you can call them, the Gen X, which I'm part of. We saw misadoption. People are used to work in one way, and if you're an inside sales and you're 35 to 45 years old, you know the job, you know the drill. So you've been engaging with many ways, you've been successful. If you're still in this job, it means you've been successful in new ways, and trying new things is not open to everybody. So trying to prove the point that social will be a long-term return. It will not be a short-term return. It will be a long-term return because, again, our intent is not to be at the end of the sales cycle, but very early in the sales cycle. So the sales cycle will still go on its own journey, and we only try to be there earlier. So that was hard to to convince.
Well, that's fantastic because that leads into my next question in part number 4 around business closing. But this in the next slide, it's not just about business closing, as you're going to see. A lot of sales professionals are using it as the creation of a lead, getting in the door earlier, nurturing an account so they can shorten the velocity or the time it takes to close a deal, and then ultimately getting to closing the deal. I mean, that's ultimately why we're here. So, Stan, maybe we talk about early indicators, mid indicators, lagging indicators, such as early indicators like leads or opportunities or closed business. What were your expectations? And then what were some of the early warning signs or wins that this clearly was making an impact? What can other leaders look for, knowing that their sales cycle might be 6 months or a year long? What are the early wins they could look for?
So Jamie, I mean, that's a very important question because we start something, we have to convince all of these people, and we don't have results. And that's what happened to us a year ago. We have done all the training, all the investment, all certifications, and we didn't see the pipeline. We didn't see the closed business. That was very hard to believe into. And of course, training is a training. To get a new muscle built, it takes time. It takes a lot of efforts to see the results. So we looked in and we built up, reports and dashboards around it that has early lead indicator, like, we could see like simple thing like, the social selling index from LinkedIn, or we can see also, the email messages being created or being sent. We can see the search. So all of the native tools of LinkedIn were important. We also see something that, number of new contacts being done by our overall workforce. So that's something we looked into. Are we really engaging new customers on social? That was a very early indicator. Of course, the obvious one for any sales leader is then pipeline creation. All right. But then you realize that many guys create conversation but do not record it in your sales force. So we had to make sure, we implemented new processes within Salesforce to have to create a new origin of the lead, which is social selling. And of course, the lagging indicator is deal closed. So now we are in a mature state. I won't say we're mature, but we're much more mature than we were a year ago. And we have monthly dashboards that are being representing the different theater and a global view of all of these indicators. So from, SSI score, emails, message sends, email sends, a number of contacts, pipeline creation, and close business in a very simple
that's fantastic. So you as a leader can just look at this dashboard and get a real sense in real time that that social is moving the not only accounts but moving the entire whole of the inside sales team forward. That's fantastic.
Yes.
And actually, there's a question by Kathy, and it kind of goes along to the next slide. So we'll ask it as we're moving to the next slide. Kathy's question, I'm just going to hit retry. It just refreshed me here. Kathy's question on the next slide, as it's just refreshing, is centered around, let me just move back a particular slide here on slide number 5, which is around usage. Now we're going to talk about activity, because Kathy was asking, what specifically are your reps doing from an activity? How long are they spending with social? And so maybe you can help Kathy understand, you talked around adding contacts to the CRM, you talked about engaging the customer with sales activity, like in-mails. If you can give her some tactics around what they do day in, day out.
Yeah, sure. I think that's a very good question, because social may mean different things for different people. Now, I'd like to tell you, Kathy, that everybody is doing the same thing, and that'll be a lie, because we have, as I mentioned earlier, the kind of super adopters, and they really spend a lot of their time today on social. And I will talk about the best practice, perhaps more about what we've seen working well. So there is kind of almost two kind of chapters we see, or twofold. The first one is the daily, we call it the daily routine. Daily routine is about, sharing some of the news you want to be an expert in. And I'll give you an example. If you follow me, I will do a lot around cybersecurity. I'll do a lot around, IoT on self-driving cars. I'll do a lot of the topics that I like. And that will make me as subject matter expert, for example, around this. If you want inside seller, what we have as well, we go and are very targeted on accounts. So each of our inside sales has a focused account list. They have to go and break into and have a time to do it. And for that, they will do different things. They will surround them. They will follow them. They'll get any news from different means on it and try to find opportunities to engage a prospect with this. So you do have an element of, sharing. Some could call it spamming, but the reality is when you don't share only your company news, but really industry relevant news, that makes it relevant to your network, and one which is really targeted. We will really go after a targeted accounts. We surround them. We get any news, anything that comes digital from the customer, from the prospect. We take it as an opportunity to engage a conversation with them. So that's kind of some of the two good things that we see going pretty easily. Then, if the overall training has many other tricks. You follow, the different groups you want to go on your prospect. You can follow, industry groups if you want to. You can write blogs, share it, and engage, call out people. Many ways then you engage people in the conversation. But these are two ways. One is broadly and one is refocused.
Well, and in fact, that comes to a question that Stephen had asked. It was around content. And there's the idea that, and he wants to know, are your sales team members curating third-party content from CIO Forum or Harvard Business Review? Are they creating their own? Do you have a central content library that is helped organized by your marketing team that the sales reps can pick and choose from? How did that all get organized?
So it's where it's a very hard question, because we know what we need and we have things that we do. In the ideal case, you would want to have somebody who's dedicated to social, who really creates some of the industry content and some of your company-specific content, and be able to kind of help these guys share it. And because they've been trained, they just don't share, but they put a comment, they put an opinion about it, they're opinionated about the news, and they can call out people. That's in the ideal stage you like to have. We had, and we used interns for that last year. So we created, we call it, the daily news, or the daily kind of industry news by topics that we start sharing with an intern, trying to get things started and self-fed. Now, we don't have this role. That's something we definitely are looking for to build over time. Now, if you train them well, and people can become their own kind of content creator by spending a bit of time. If you use tools like, Google Alerts, Feedly, and you spend 15 minutes on it, and you have done your right filtering, you can become very good in finding information. But the reality is, if you have a large organization, it's very unlikely that you have everybody doing this as a practice. So I would definitely recommend the step we're looking for is perhaps to have somebody to really look in this news, filter it, and make it available so people can really go and start share it in a more kind of programmatic way.
Fantastic. Well, and so as we look at now a year, 18 months, 2 years down the road, and you've begun to formalize and centralize training and inside sales, and you've even begun moving this into the field sales, perhaps you could give a two-part question. If you had a time machine, you could go back in time, do it all over again. You could even do it before you did centralized training. You could even talk about, as you mentioned, the mixed results or the failures that happened when you tried to do it internally. But number one question, what would you do all over again? And the second part of the question, what would you double, triple, or 10x down? What worked so well that you wish you had just hammered that piece more consistently? So two-part question.
Oh, it's a very hard question because sometimes we don't learn well from the past, right? So, but for sure, the one I'll do again is a decision to say social is our future. Social is part of the job, and we'll need to empower people about this tool. That's no doubt about it. I don't think anybody right now in our inside sales will. Of course, you'll have the laggers who will say, "Yeah, it's not been sharing results for me because my customers don't use it," and that can happen for sure. But overall, as a strategy, that was definitely a wise move for us. That gave us really good results. Now we see it. If I had to change things, be more prepared about the expectation. I won't say we panicked, but our plan was too short. We planned reinforcement sessions. We planned coaching, but more on the tactical way. It should have been really part of our overall program. The thing that also I would perhaps do better, or if I had to do again, how I would change it, is really around, the metrics. Our metrics came not day one. We build them up as we learn the program. And I think that we're having more best practice sharing from others about what metrics to look into and so on will have helped us a lot because we found a bit on our way what we're looking for. That's something that I would do better for sure. And the last one I will do better is when you do it halfway, you have half results, or perhaps even less. And we've invested in steps, perhaps because we didn't know where we were going. Now, if I do it again with the result that I know now, I would perhaps double down into the team to help explain all of this content curation, for example, metrics, re-engagement, really a team focused only on social and enablement of social selling because it took us too long to have everybody, and we don't have yet everybody really focused on social. That's one thing I would have done better.
Yeah, and in fact, Gary, because you were talking about content creation, the importance of it, Gary had mentioned that he feels that most customers seem to be in sleep mode unless it captures their attention, surprises them, tends to gloss over the collateral. And one of the elements that we've started experimenting with customers is now personalized videos because it's unexpected, because it's different, it's humanized, and it's contextualized. So I can take 3 data points from CIO Forum, from CSO Insights, and from Gartner Magic Quadrant and pull it all together and tell a 2-minute story. And Stan, maybe to help Gary understand, I mean, your company now is creating pipeline. It's creating leads, opportunities, and revenue from this. Help Gary understand that even you have some of the hardest buyers, the chief information officer, the chief technology officer, how important content plays in this.
So two things, because I think somebody else mentioned something about content. So and so if I was not clear about it, the sharing content and your company specific stuff with no opinion, with nothing, doesn't pay big dividends. I think it's important, but just sharing and liking things doesn't pay any dividends. As a matter of fact, there's something very powerful in LinkedIn are the analytics. And you see when you share some very standard things about your company, you have very little interest from your network. But when you really share something with an opinion, with something very personalized that you've done, you can see a huge bump into the interest of your network. So first thing is you see people, and you can even see who looked into it by role and so on. So what I've seen, to answer your question now, Jamie, is being specific by your content, having an opinion, being personalized, even sometimes calling out people, your CIO, whatever. You see they're watching this news. So people are spending time for different reasons, sometimes for finding, their information on the network, sometimes just because they're looking for a job, but they are out there. So when you share relevant content, you call them out, and you see CIOs and all kind of roles looking into it. And sometimes it doesn't have to be a news. I'll just give an example. Last Friday, I was in Thailand with a team picture for dinner, and I just called out a few people and said, "Oh, it was really cool, good job," and so on. We got like 7,000 views in like 3 days. And I can check. It's all our customers saying, "Hey, Stan, that's cool to see you here." So sometimes it's not about the news, it's just keeping a constant connect with your customers.
Yeah, so that is fantastic advice, and very similar to us. We've started in the last year when we engage with customers. We'll take photos of ourselves in their office, and it's incredible how valuable personal photos of a business, whether it's your company is volunteering at a nonprofit, or you've engaged a new customer, and they, it shows that the customer and yourself are working well together. How powerful that is, as that goes viral. Other companies, their competitors, their like-minded industry peers, want to also participate in this. So great tip around the photo of Thailand, because now it gets, it gets other CIOs thinking about, maybe we should further our conversations with Juniper for whatever reason. And now I have, just looking at the time, Stan, I have one last question on the last slide. The question is around ROI, finalizing training. We know that centralizing and enabling your team to get them to do the same things, while not everybody will do the same things, it has a revenue impact. So help the team kind of wrap this up. What are next steps for Juniper in their social selling evolution, from an adoption, from a culture? Kind of what are lasting words you can give everybody?
So my learning, again, that's a very humble learning from, a small team we've been managing so far, is it's very hard before it's easy. And we are still on the hard piece. Enablement is long, it's bumpy, and it takes time. And when we have a clear view on what we want to achieve and people buy into it at every level, then you see the dividends paying off. But for sure, in terms of ROI and adoption, our next steps are really, and we're still I won't say in the storm, we see now some great success with really good pipeline being created, and we take these examples to keep on reinforcing the message to our teams. Because again, enablement to get 100 sales guys using every day is hard. And for us, for sure, our next step is we've been really, I would say, I can say right now, pretty successful into driving it within our inside sales. Is can this be applied to now field sellers who are on the road, perhaps have less time behind a computer to do this? And how do we, and sometimes field sellers as well, are the different generation of age as well. How will they embrace it? Are they, can we turn them on and make them like this kind of new tools to be successful and run the customers? So this is really a journey for us, and we can't claim victory, but we can see really that we've done some key milestones, and we know we have quite a few going forward. And we're looking for every help that we can get from anybody, So we are very opportunistic sometimes, and you guys in Sales for Life have been really helpful, really partner with us in this journey, that's for sure. So we won't be where we are without the help. Jamie and all your crew have been very supportive. Sometimes you understand our challenges in budget when we are limited, and you help us. And that's a great partnership for sure.
So that's Stan's kind way of saying we're very entrepreneurial. We are there to help. I love it, Stan, and that's very sage advice. Um, Everybody, as we're wrapping up, I'm just looking at the time. We've kind of answered some questions along the journey, but Stan needs to move on to a next meeting. Stan, thank you so much for your time. It's really important that you take Stan's advice because he's done this. He's gone through the journey. Stan, where can people connect with you if they want to learn more from you?
LinkedIn, email, messages. That's way.
Fantastic.
I met yesterday the product manager of Messenger in Facebook, and showed me Facebook can be a really powerful tool as well for connecting as well. So the Facebook works as well for me, of course.
Oh, and you look out because Facebook is going to be definitely part of our curriculum in the future. It is. There's no question it's having more of a business-to-business impact.
Yeah.
Well, greatly appreciate your time, Stan, and thank you everyone for this session.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.